Hi, John Graham here again, the latest edition of my YouTube talks about Irish records and their connection to my website, johngrenham.com. Today I'm going to talk about heraldry in Ireland and the records it's produced. Heraldry is the study of coats of arms, and there's lots to talk about, so let's get stuck in straight away. Okay, here we are again at a very familiar homepage. What I'm going to do is go to an article about heraldry on the site and use that as a jumping off point for other things. So browse articles, general articles, heraldry in Ireland. Here we are. Okay. One of the first things I always like to tell people about heraldry is that the terminology is very precise. It's one of the most precise, nitpicking little sets of terminology that you can imagine. One of the biggest things that gets on my nerves and on the nerves of anybody involved in heraldry is this business of what they're actually called. They're called coats of arms. They're not called crests. Okay, a crest is a part of, can be a part of a coat of arms, but they're actually called coats of arms. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that they are not widespread. Okay, people don't necessarily have a coat of arms. Only about 1% of the population are legally entitled to bear coats of arms. In Ireland, that doesn't matter so much, and I'll talk about why that is in a while. But in other parts of the world, if you publicly display a coat of arms that you don't own, that is not your property, you can get into big trouble. Again, I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So the first things you need to know: coats of arms, not crests, and very few people have them. They are the property of the most the richest layer of society. Simple as that. That they are symbols of status. How they came to be is part of the reason why they're symbols of status. They came into existence in the between the 12th and the 14th century in Europe as part of the Crusades, basically. They were military insignia. If you think about it, if you're on a crusade and there's somebody charging at you on a giant armored horse with a giant lance about to stick it into you, it's a very good idea to have some way of communicating to people that you're on their side. So these big insignia, generally a lot of them involving crosses, the Christian symbol par excellence. So the, crosses, fleur-de-lis, or royal symbols, the lion, and so on. So the things that are big, simple, easily recognizable, that somebody isn't going to put an axe through your head because you're wearing the wrong, you're not wearing your coat of arms. Arising out of the Crusades, as they came home, those insignia became personal property. They were treated by the Normans, who were the main sort of driving force behind a lot of the military adventurism of the Crusades. They were treated by the Normans as personal property. And like other personal property held by the Normans, they were inherited by the eldest son. So primogeniture became the way coats of arms passed from between generations, which meant all the other 18 children that your Norman lord had didn't have a coat of arms. So they went about getting them themselves and creating them. So you can see, and straight away, the fact that it was these people who had gone on the Crusades who were the leaders of the Crusades. This was a status symbol straight off. Okay. They came into existence more or less at the same time in England, France, Germany, and Italy, and they spread widely from there. The military rationale behind them obviously ceased with the Crusades, but the social status associated with them kept on. Okay. One of the things, as I say, about coats of arms that you need to be aware of is what they actually are. This down here is the coat of arms of Ireland after 1707, so after the Act of Union with Scotland. Some elements of this are related to that. But what I want to talk about is just the elements of it. The coat of arms is this thing in the center, this wonderful woman who is a harp. So the harp has been a symbol of Ireland for a very, very long time. There are supporters on either side. These are optional. the more elaborate and the more sort of upper class you are, the more likely you are to have them. So royal arms, these are a feature of royal arms. These are the supporters of the royal family of England and Wales and Scotland. The motto at the bottom, and at the top, this is a helmet. There can also be on top of this again a crest. So as you can see, as in most luxury items, they can become more as elaborate as the customer wants. Okay, simple as that. So that's how coats of arms came into being. In Ireland, there were very peculiar circumstances associated with heraldry. There were, as you can see, if you have a look at the National Library, there's a link here to the National Library is the locus of heraldic authority in Ireland now via the office of the Chief Herald, which is part of the National Library. They give a very good explanation of how Gaelic genealogy, Gaelic heraldry came about. It was mainly initially seals. Okay, these items used to sign, to officially sign treaties, agreements, and from the 14th and 15th century on, the Gaelic Irish aristocrats were using these, and eventually they in imitation of the Normans and of the English incomers, they began to use their own coats of arms. There were specific features of Irish coats of arms. This is a sort of a blast of 100 Irish coats of arms that are available on the website. You'll find a link to this on the main surnames page. So if you click just on surnames up here, there'll be a link to this page. It's just an interesting way of looking at all of the arms together. One of the things you'll see, these are all arms mainly of Gaelic families and Anglo-Irish Norman families. So there are lots of features that are particularly Irish. I mean, this, for example, the stag is a classic Irish feature. The boar, they're part of the tradition of Irish legend and kingship. So you can see on the arms of Doran down here. Here's another boar, MacDonagh there. Daly up here. Okay, you have the lion rampant and the red hand, which is a classic Ulster symbol. You can see again stags. You can see boars. You know, as I say, as you look through Irish arms, you begin to see certain features recurring again and again. But you have to remember that the Norman version of inheritance, primogeniture, was completely alien to Irish Gaelic culture. So it was only really by hybridizing Gaelic and Norman inheritance practices that these became the personal property of the eldest sons. What happened in Ireland, I mentioned earlier on that there is a difference between heraldry as it's treated in Ireland and elsewhere. And one of the biggest ones is that it's not really taken that seriously here. And the main reason for that is by here, I mean the Republic of Ireland, the south of Ireland. After independence, the main office dealing with heraldry in Ireland, the Ulster King of Arms, the Office of Ulster King of Arms, became eventually the Office of the Chief Herald, also known as the Genealogical Office. And that office had been there since the 16th century, and was concerned with regulating who was entitled to bear coats of arms. So it was very much concerned with the upper crust, who were overwhelmingly Anglo-Irish, whose loyalty was to the English crown, and who were not very much at home in the new Ireland. So it was a bit of an anomaly, the Office of Ulster. It eventually became the Office of the Chief Herald, and heraldry was a bit of an anomaly again. The first holder of the office, Edward MacLysaght, the man who wrote the very famous Irish surnames, More Irish Families, the Dictionary of Irish Surnames, the granddaddy of us all in this business. He was the first Chief Herald, and he decided that in Ireland, coats of arms weren't just inherited to the eldest son, weren't personal property in the way that the Normans had understood it, that there was such a thing as sept arms, in other words, arms that belonged to everybody in a certain area bearing the same surname. And he came out with this in Irish families, and on the basis of that, everybody bearing a surname can now buy a keyring with the surname, with the coat of arms on it. So you can see, for example, this is keyring with the McDonald's on it. In most other countries, the only people entitled to carry this around would be somebody who had inherited the coat of arms from their father. Not so in Ireland, okay? And I can tell you there are lots of shops around where you can, they will find a surname that's similar to yours and give you a coat of arms on it. So you can bear it in perpetuity. Again, this is, I'm looking at part of the blog here. This is one of my rants about Irish heraldic bling. Buy me a pint sometime and I'll go into even more detail about it. But this is not the case in other countries. My favorite example is Scotland, where the Lord Lion is the individual in charge of enforcing heraldic rules in Scotland. And it's against the law to display a coat of arms that isn't registered, to publicly display a coat of arms that isn't registered with him. And the best examples I've heard of it are, first of all, apparently Donald Trump's airplane landed at an airport in Scotland with his coat of arms on the tailplane, and the Lord Lion sort of tapped him on the shoulder and said, either you register this or I take the airplane. And so his arms are now registered with the Lord Lion. A more down-to-earth one is an English company who was producing beer and canning it and sending truckloads of the stuff up to Scotland with a coat of arms on it that wasn't registered with the Lord Lion. And the Lord Lion warned them and said, you have to register this or stop using the coats of arms. And they just ignored him. So he confiscated all their beer. Yay. Okay. Man after my own heart. Give me a job like that, please. Okay. One of the things about the Ulster Office of Arms is that it is very useful for particular kinds of genealogy. If your inheritance of a coat of arms depends on who you're descended from, you have to show who you're descended from. And the Irish Genealogical Office, the Office of Arms, the Office of the Chief Herald, has lots of records that are genealogical because of that. Lots of records. First, obviously, recording coats of arms, some lovely things there. Lots of things recording pedigrees of people who are claiming to be entitled to coats of arms. Lots of records investigating who is bearing coats of arms and why they're bearing them. So there are lots and lots of interesting things in there. As I say, it is now part of the National Library of Ireland manuscript collection. Their archives are, and if you're lucky enough to have an ancestor who was a property member of the Anglo-Irish, then this is a very good source to head for. Even if you don't, it can be very, very interesting. Let me show you. Okay, one of the things that there's a detailed account of the office here, as you can see, the official records, other records, indexes and all. What I'm going to look at is, this is a complete list of all the manuscripts held in the Genealogical Office collection and whether or not there is an index to them. You can see just from looking at this, a lot of them are genealogical scraps. I mean, they're pretty accurate, the titles of some of these. My favorite is, there's a series called Chaos in here somewhere. A lot of them, as you can see, are not indexed. A lot of them are reference works. So if you're creating a coat of arms for somebody, you want to see, has somebody else got a coat of arms? So you need to be able to check what arms are there, so and so on and so forth. So you have registered families, you have British families, Cromwell's officers. Okay, you have all sorts of interesting bits and pieces. You have funeral entries. These are You can see from 1588 right up to 1689, 1681, 1689. One of the jobs of the Ulster King of Arms was to go to the funerals of the upper classes and see what coats of arms were being displayed. And some of these are extraordinary things. Let me just, as I say, these are online. If they're online, there's a link to them here. A lot of these are in the catalogue of the National Library of Ireland. You can click on the link there and be taken to them. So funeral entries number 3, you get these wonderful, one of the things about the coats of arms is that they are, a lot of them, the artwork involved in them is just superb. So you can see here, that's pretty spectacular. It's, again, this is like the our ancestors were pretty morbid as well. Okay, this is a good horror show, but the artwork itself can be useful, and like maps, sometimes you get wrapped up in it. Okay, sorry, I've lost my place there. So let's go back to the records, genealogical office, and the most useful of these records is undoubtedly the prerogative wills. I think I mentioned these in the talk I gave on Irish testamentary records. One of the things that one of the most famous of the Ulster King of Arms, Sir William Beetham, did was to go into the collections, the probate. It wasn't the probate office at that stage. It was the court of the Prerogative Court of Armagh that had all these records of prerogative wills. If you remember, prerogative wills are wills with property in more than one diocese, so they tend to be the upper crust, and also people who happen to live near a diocesan border. But that's an added bonus. And then he extracted all the family information from the wills, and then began to knit that family information together. So if 2 or 3 wills from different members of the family, different generations, he would knit them all together and sketch pedigrees. And there's every single will before 1800, the family information is abstracted. Not all of them are online. Only the ones that needed conservation were put online by the National Library. So you can see it's hit and miss. These are the starting letters of the surnames. So let's go and have a look at that. So prerogative wills. This is okay. Let's have a look at this one here. Genealogical abstracts of prerogative wills, SA to SM. And we come in here and just look at let's give it a good. Okay, so there you are. You can see Richard Scott of Carlisle, Richard Scott of Kildrocht and Kildare, married to Catherine, had William, Ezra, and so on. It gives, all of these give the will dated 13th of September 1710, probated 2nd of January 1711. So you can see these are all, we happen to be in the SC. So Scott, all the Scots are here, all there, and you can see he's knitting together, adding in other information, things in pencil later on. So it's an extraordinary compendium of genealogical information for people who had prerogative wills. Why would Beetham do this? Okay, he was the Ulster King of Arms. What was he doing looking at wills? These were his constituents. These were his marketplace. These were the people most likely to be interested in heraldry, were the people with prerogative wills, the people with most property. The good news is that his dragnet was broad enough to drag up lots and lots of people who were not particularly propertied, who just happened to have £5 worth of property in a second diocese. So somebody worth £10 with 5 in 2 dioceses is not at the creme de la creme of society, but they'll be here. If they had a will, a pre-1800 will, they'll be here. Okay, so that's the good news about that. The bad news, as I said, is that they're not all online, and unfortunately for the other ones, the only access direct access is via the manuscript room of the National Library, still closed for the moment. Roll on the vaccinations. There are also microfilm copies of these held by the LDS Church, for the Family History Library. Again, also closed, available through family history libraries, but not actually online. I would love to see them online, but they're very hard to use. They simply used up an entire roll of microfilm, got halfway through a volume, stuck on another microfilm, continued from where they were. So the volumes are broken up over multiple microfilms, and it can be very hard to navigate between them. But they're there, and they're also not the best microfilmed, not the highest quality microfilms I've ever seen, which is being polite about it. Okay, I should also say that, of course, the genealogical office, the office of the Chief Herald, now held, I have to say, by Colette O'Flaherty, a woman, which is another extraordinary innovation for Irish heraldry. I'm delighted about. The office is still functioning. It still grants coats of arms, official coats of arms, at this point mainly to corporate bodies. I mean, one of the little known rules of becoming a bishop is that you have to get your own set of coat of arms, and the office of the Chief Herald is the only one that can give them to you. So, but other people with connections with Ireland, people like Michael Flatley, others have got their own coats of arms via the office. It's quite expensive, as a bespoke, personalized piece of artwork and service should be, but it's there, and I'm glad to see it's there. One of the things you might have, if you look at some of my rants, is that the big heraldry can attract a little bit of snobbery, and it can attract people who are it can attract let me not talk about the people who are very, very meticulous. Okay, put it like that. That's an excellent euphemism there as well. So it's not always, I haven't always, as you noticed, I'm neither meticulous nor snobbish. So I personally find have problems with some aspects of it, but I think the artwork is gorgeous. I think the records of the genealogical office are wonderful. Full disclosure, I was their in-house researcher for a while, and I hope I've managed to give you some sense of how the records came about and how they might be useful to you, and what kind of ancestors they might be useful to. So the best of luck, happy hunting. Thanks for listening.